Koala y'all, I know I've been gone for a minute, but I'm back on the jump off. Goons in the club. Little Kim lyric. Shout out to Little Kim. Congratulations on your Hip Hop Honor Award. But I really want to talk about the title, which is Why Cop Killers Are Black Heroes. Because I really wanted to clarify it, because it seems like usual, white media just don't understand us Negroes. Just don't understand us African people fighting for resistance. First and foremost, let's define what the police is, who they are, who they be. The police, okay, is a tool of coercion that is used by the ruling class to continue the status quo. Currently, we live in an unfair, economic, parasitic, capitalistic system that oppresses African and colonized people of the world, okay? Where 80% of the people of this world do not have access to clean water, okay? So for that to continue, for the minority to rule the majority of resources and keep the people who have the rightful ownership to those resources, African and colonized people, you have to have a system of complete and utter violence, which is the police. They are the reason why a starving person cannot go into, a starving poor person cannot go into a store and get him some food, because the police will come and use violence, okay? Put him in prison, beat him, maybe even kill him. Now, the police have been killing African and colonized people left and right, but now with video footage, we see it on a daily basis. We saw what they did to that sister's boyfriend when he was just reaching for his identification. We saw what they did to that brother who was just selling CDs. We saw what they did to a child who was just walking home from the playground, okay? And then Barack Obama wants to call these cop killers, okay, these African heroes, these African martyrs, okay, of the African resistance, cowards. Let me tell you who the fucking coward is, Barack Hussein Obama. A coward is an armed, organized force that murders unarmed black people. The coward is an armed, organized organization who murders African children on the playground, African children in their bed, an African woman on a road trip, Sandra Bland. That is a coward. That is the coward, okay? A coward is you, Obama, who sits in the White House and signs papers to send drones to Somalia to kill 150 people just so y'all can acquire the oil that is under Somalian land, okay? That is a coward. Cowards sit in the White House and set off bombs all around colonized land in Africa and in what you call the Middle East. That is cowardly. I don't see cowards as one person. Micah X was one person, okay? Gavin Long was one person that armed themselves and fought a heavily armed, heavily organized force, okay? And won, because they got more numbers in the game. You feel me? Okay, first and foremost, what we see, that is an act of self-defense. How dare you put us through 500 years of colonialism, 500 years of slavery, 500 years of oppression and killing our men, women, and children left and right, and you expect nothing to happen to you? It's just not going to go that way anymore. You have this license just to kill Africans, but Africans cannot retaliate? No, it's not going down like that anymore. So y'all need to, let me not even go there.
I find that the most difficult kind of hate speech to recognize and sometimes to challenge is hate speech that speaks to us in our own language, on our own terms. Hate speech that speaks to us in our own moral terms. Hate speech that speaks to us in our own philosophical terms. And I had that kind of experience with my research on the YouTuber Ghazi Kodo. I've done a lot of discussion on this channel for the subject of hate speech. I've made some controversial statements about my stance on prosecuting vilifying statements in the public discourse, particularly in the public political discourse, because I feel that there's a risk in perpetuating unpersoning language. And when I went to Ghazi Kodo's channel, I was expecting a black equivalent of Richard Spencer, basically, because that was how Ghazi Kodo had been presented to me. This guy is, the equal, the Black Lives Matter version of Richard Spencer. Now, that didn't necessarily turn out to be the case. I'm going to start all of this evaluation with a basic disclaimer. I do not endorse Gazi Koto's beliefs. I do not endorse his use of transphobic, misogynistic, and racist language. I do feel like when I went to his channel, though, he has a good understanding of history. You know, that's, I guess, what makes him different than Richard Spencer, is that Richard Spencer is like creating a bunch of imaginary crimes committed against white people. White genocide is not real. White genocide is what Richard Spencer refers to race mixing as. The tough thing about recognizing Gazi's hate speech is that it is cloaked in accurate facts, accurate historical facts about the victimization and exploitation of the Pan-African diaspora. That's what makes it extremely difficult, is that Gazi to some extent is right on the fact that black people are being oppressed in America by the police and treated unfairly, but he's wrong on the solution that he offers for resolving that problem, which is, he endorses cop killers as heroes of the movement. I can't get on board for that. I don't think that has any sort of moral value. I don't support targeted assassinations and terrorism. I don't support that. I know that with all the kind of talk about, all the negative sentiment expressed at some of these red and black political protests about cops, that people sort of infer that I'm kind of on board with violence against police. I'm not into that, and particularly I'm not on board with collective punishment. That was the through line when I was examining Gazi Koto's philosophy and his understanding of history. He makes kind of the same mistake that Richard Spencer and Millennial Woes make with immigrants and Muslims and non-whites. If you took Millennial Woes rhetoric about Muslims and you took Richard Spencer's rhetoric about African Americans, you would basically land on Gazi Koto's obsession with black Jews, meaning fundamentally that white Jews are false and white Jews are malignant and beholden to Ethiopian Jews. But I know in Israel there is some mistreatment of dark-skinned Jews, but that's not about, again, collective condemnation is bullshit. I have to thank Gazi to some extent because he was very well informed and educated me on a piece of history that is relevant to the moral mission of this channel. He made me aware of the Second Reich, the crimes of the Second Reich in the early 20th century, perpetrated by the German army, a sort of proto-Holocaust that was perpetrated in in a concentration camp called Shark Island against Namibian African slaves, and it was sort of a dry Holocaust. A dry run for the techniques of torture that would later be used in the German Holocaust. And I do think that Ghazi is right in terms of when people in the West examine history, they often do it through a Eurocentric lens. They do it through a white-centered lens, and there is more recognition of white victims, but I don't think that there's a lot of evidence that I don't think there's a lot of evidence that it's nefarious, that somehow people's unconscious biases are a product of endemic hatred. I think it's just a subconscious bias. I think that people recognize suffering. They empathize more easily with people that look like them, which is I can't pass a moral judgment on mechanism of perception. Ghazi Koto is aware of the atrocities committed against the African diaspora in America, but his solution is to collectively blame every white person for the sins of George Washington. His solution to these tragedies visited upon the Namibians is to blame white Jews as grand malefactors against black people, and to refer to them as colonizers. And he has a understanding, he has an awareness of colonialism and imperialism. He knows what happened. He doesn't. Where he transgresses, where the guy turns into a train wreck, is where he tries to understand why. That's where he lands in like this Alex Jones territory of conspiracy theories and the inference that there's a difference, and it is a subtle difference, but there's a difference between white supremacy as a philosophy being used to fuel exploitation of black people, and white people somehow being natural enemies of white people being natural enemies of black people. The crimes. My point is that the crimes of history that have been committed by whites against black are not in the blood. That's my biggest problem with Ghazi Koto, is that when he talks about collective punishment, he talks about it. He does talk about it. He does remind me more of millennial woes than Richard Spencer, but that's because Richard Spencer's rhetoric is a bunch of hateful shit dressed up with PC language. Richard Spencer uses generally soft, politicized terms to push his agenda. He just codes in every so often an epitaph or sort of an edgelord statement, and then like a whole paragraph of like touchy-feely, progressive-sounding social justice for whites is Richard Spencer. So in my opinion, Ghazi lands more at millennial woes. Millennial woes is ostensibly literate. he's ostensibly aware of history and all that stuff, but he fucks it up. He fucks it up. He takes his awareness and understanding, his understanding of history, and then fails the comprehension part of it. You know what I mean? He completely fucks up when it comes to what did you learn today, Millennial Woes? I learned that Muslims are bad. But Rose, you learned so much about the history of Rome. I know. Same thing with Gazi Koto. Gazi Koto learned a bunch of important shit about the genocide in Namibia, the Holocaust of the American Indian, on and on. His fucking takeaway is, "You, I am your father." His takeaway is, "White people are the devil." And not without any, nuance, but I think within the nuance he gets lost, and within his perception of nuance, he loses me. So yeah, it was hard for me to at first recognize the hate speech of Gazi Koto when I first started processing his stuff, just because he is radical left, he's far left, and a lot of his language about justice sounds familiar to me. So I put out a tweet. I was like, oh shit, I agree. I agree with Gazi. Gazi's right on a bunch of stuff, but he's fucking wrong on the balance. When he's done telling you what happened, he doesn't seem to understand why it was wrong and why people did it. And if you recognize an injustice, but you don't understand the reasons behind it, no action you propose or take is going to stop that injustice from happening again. So, my final thought on it is that Ghazi's speech is dangerous. Ghazi's speech is cancer, and I would put him on that tier of people that are a threat to the public, that their rhetoric is a threat to the public. And I might get more support on that because his hate speech is draped with BLM rhetoric. Maybe the people that supported Richard Spencer's speech will suddenly realize how bad hate speech is now that it's coming out of a black face.